So let's keep it that.
Extra what?
Extra, yeah, let's keep it that way.
Okay. Hello and welcome to another live stream from the only channel on the internet that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today we're going to start off by talking about my new book, and hopefully we'll get into some other things that people are actually interested in after I get done talking about that. But what I'm going to do, I think from now on these live streams, as I'm working on the book, I'll read a little bit from it so you can see how far I've gotten. Obviously, what I'm going to read today will change 100 times before it actually goes into print. And just for anybody that doesn't know, I am writing a book, and so probably the only videos you're going to get out of me are these live streams. We've got the podcast that we do about the same time, so that's up. Ala Toledo, that's up, isn't it? The podcast for this week.
Yes. So actually, today's is going to be up and about right after we're done here. So about 5 minutes after we finish with this, the podcast will be on the website.
Yeah. Do you remember what we talked about?
A little bit of everything, but it was kind of more about whether people are deceptive or, like, a little bit of Jehovah's Witness stuff. A little bit of everything. It was kind of a hodgepodge.
Okay. Well, that's what's out there. If you make it over to the website, click on the podcast. We've got it up. This week's is ready to go. Okay, I got to go to my Microsoft OneDrive, open up the book, and for anybody that doesn't know, this is what I'm going to be doing. Hopefully I can get this done in a year instead of 5 years like the last big project I tackled. But it's going to be basically an easy-to-follow outline of everything that Sustenance and Covering has produced on this subject of this Bible Code, the Written in Stone series, all of that. Anyways, here I'll show you what this looks like if maybe you can see it. There's my text document, and I'm going to start each chapter with a Bible verse as translated by me into modern English. Romans chapter 3 and verse 4. It is written, even if every human lies, God won't. So that's the beginning of chapter 1. Thousands of years ago, around the world, mankind somehow developed a written language. Very little of what they would have written survives into our day because our planet has a way of renewing itself, consuming that which is dead in order to nourish that which is alive. It could be said that the planet itself is a living being. Its systems, which support all of us, have been functioning from the moment that we came to life and are still functioning in the same basic way, even now. We know that our parents were here long before us and their parents long before them. So most of us believe, and reasonably so, that our planet has been functioning in a similar fashion for a very long time, even before the time of our grandparents. Even though much of what was recorded in the ancient past has been lost to time, many ancient artifacts, which were made of materials that are more durable, have survived. Other articles made of less durable materials were stored away in places where the environment was just right for protecting such items. Underground chambers, caves, and graves not exposed to sunlight in areas where there is very little moisture have a way of preserving things that would normally deteriorate into dust or even become part of some living thing, be it a plant, animal, or even one of us. Much of the writing found on such ancient objects tell of mundane things, such as would be found in any society. Sales receipts, inventories of goods, census records, and other such things. Many other items tell of historic events associated with the societies that produced them. Many of the writings from the ancient past record information that most of us would find hard to believe. Stories from the ancient past often describe events that in our day would be called miracles. We are taught from infancy that miracles don't happen, and most of us simply accept that this is the case. Civilization has had thousands of years to develop means of controlling what its citizens believe, whether it is called propaganda, Public relations are simply the networks. The fact is that the vast majority of human beings will simply not believe in things that they are told not to believe in. As a result, most of us alive today accept the birth of a human child as common, but scoff at the notion of a global deluge. To anyone that would bother to think it through, the conception and birth of a human child would be exponentially more unlikely than a global deluge. Even when you consider that according to many ancient flood stories, a single family built a vessel large enough to preserve all life on the planet, the story is still more believable than the commonly accepted notion that humans are born with the power to reproduce. It must be admitted that many of the stories from the ancient past are even more preposterous than the concept of a global deluge. Many cultures left behind stories involving beings that we today call gods, beings from some other realm able to alter the course of human history, beings with extraordinary abilities, beings able to travel from heaven to earth and back again.
Wow.
Well,
is that it?
No, it wasn't it. What happened? I tried to click my clicker. Oh, okay. No wonder. I'm near the end. Yeah, so I'm near the end. Most of us alive today simply brush off such stories as part of man's evolutionary process. Stories created as humanity crossed the threshold from being simple primates to becoming human beings. According to the religion of science, humans are different in that they can contemplate their existence in ways that other life forms cannot. In other words, things such as birds, reptiles, fish, and other life forms live in the moment and do not concern themselves with the course of their lives. They do not contemplate the future, and once it is gone, do not think about the past. Such creatures would not need an explanation for their existence. Whether or not this is the case, we as humans know that it is not the case for us. We think deeply about such things. We want to know everything that awaits us and often look to the past as a means of determining what we can expect in our future. Okay, I'm done now.
Well, that was the start. I guess everybody's excited to hear about a book. To start off with, just some hellos from the early birds is Maria Vegetable Garden, Uncle Nestor, Sleepy Girl 85, BMW Guy, Don Jones, Grandma Patty. They all say hi. First couple of questions comes from Uncle Nesta. He is asking you, what do you think the fruit from the Garden of Eden tasted like? He thinks it's pineapple flavored.
Well, you know what? Here we go. If you look at everything that's... Okay, let me get my thoughts together here. In the Bible, we're not told what the trees in the garden were. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that the trees of life were from the palm family or the pine family or the palm family, which is different than palm. Palm is like apples and pears. Palms are like pineapples and dates. I've got these things out here that maybe that they make a fruit you really aren't supposed to eat. But throughout the Bible, there are two kind of trees that end up getting mentioned a lot, and they seem to be associated with the Garden of Eden. It's like when they built the temple, all around the temple they put cherubs. The ark was in there, the Ark of the Covenant, and they had cherubs, the images of cherubs all the way around the temple, and then over the ark were two cherubs. And initially, they worshipped out of a tent, and it didn't have those. It only had the two cherubs over the ark itself, and there were no images of cherubs around the ark. But there were also images of palm trees in between the cherubs. So all the way around there were these palm trees. And that whole thing represented the Garden of Eden. Now, it wasn't in the tent, but remember, the tent was way out in the wilderness. It wasn't until they actually got to the Promised Land, they built a temple, that they included the palm trees. So that whole thing, it's just obvious to me that it represented the Garden of Eden, because remember, the Garden of Eden was surrounded by cherubs who were there to keep people out. And so if you're seeing cherubs combined with palm trees, then all of that imagery would involve the Garden of Eden. So it would have been some kind of a palm fruit. But you know, there's a lot of different kinds of coconut is a palm. You know, but I really, you know, when I was thinking about this, I mean, I like dates. I love dates, and I love pineapple. It kind of seemed to me like it would be some kind of a palm. I mean, some kind of a pineapple flavored thing, because it just tastes so good. I like pineapples, but I like dates too. I don't know, it'd be hard to say. I'm looking forward to trying them.
Joe Mama comments, first of all, that your reading voice is entertaining, but she says that in Genesis 1 it says we are free to eat from all the trees bearing fruit.
Yeah, that's true. Well, not even just all the trees bearing fruit, but it's like, what does it say, all vegetation? So, you know, I've broken that down into that's Hebrew before, and it just seems like what it's telling us is that anything that's out there that looks like food, that we instinctively recognize as food, that's food. You know, animals eat things all the time, and they don't ever think about it. You know, that no one slaps their hand when they try to reach out and grab something that's supposed to be poisonous. That's the way we humans learn. You know, we reach out to grab something. Our parents are like, no, don't eat that. That's poison. Animals know that there is nothing out there that's poison, and so sometimes they'll eat poison and die because they're out of their environment. Somehow, in the ancient past, things have entered into our environment that are poisonous to the animals that are in this environment with us. And I don't know if the animals were introduced into the wrong environment or the plants were introduced into the wrong environment, but I think basically if you read the way that's worded in ancient Hebrew, that humans would just instinctively know what to eat. But if you one of the things I've noticed is there's nothing that humans could eat that would cause damage. So it doesn't say in the Bible to eat entire plants or dig plants up and eat their roots, and you know, you don't eat the trunk of a tree, but you could eat from the fruit of the tree, and you could eat from the leaves of the tree, because those are things that would regenerate. Not only that, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to eat before it will grow. You know, it's like out here, what have I got? Wild persimmons. Wild persimmons, you can do anything you want with them. They won't grow. They have to pass through a digestive tract so that the acid wash in your stomach can rip off that outer shell, or they won't germinate. And so, you know, actually eating fruit would actually benefit the world around you, because when you poop, new trees are going to come up.
Next question comes from Don Jones. He's asking, who is Jesus? But he's asking for the short answer, and then we all joke that you never give short answers.
Yeah. I guess I know y'all are really hip to a lot of stuff, and so I want to just like spill my guts and tell you every single thing that I think about Jesus. But I don't want this video to be up where anybody can see it and then they get the wrong idea and they don't ever listen to anything else I say again. So I want to keep it simple. But there are several scriptures in the Bible that's what I'll do. I'll tell you some scriptures and let you come to your own conclusion. Okay? In the very beginning, Adam is our father. He was the very first human, right? And if you read about Adam, there's several references to him that it doesn't call him the son of man. It calls him the son of God. Adam is the son of God. Like when you read in the genealogy of Jesus, it says Jesus' son. Yeah, this is not going to be a short answer, just in case.
Yeah, we all kind of guessed it wouldn't be. So.
But anyways, the Ten Commandments, when they were given to the Israelites, they were all natural law, and one of the laws in there is honor your father and your mother, right? So if you're going to honor your father and your mother, that means you do not choose people to rule over you separate from that system. That's natural law. Natural law is you're obedient to your mama and your daddy, and then they're obedient to their mama and daddy, and all the way back. So you would get to Adam. Adam would be the only rightful ruler of mankind, right? So the only rightful ruler of mankind is Adam. And when Jesus is mentioned in the Bible, it says that his father was so-and-so, and his father was so-and-so, and it goes all the way back to Adam, and it says, and Adam's father was God. So Adam was not the son of man. He was the son of God. Then you get to the writings of Paul, and Paul wrote a lot of really strange things that don't seem to make any sense. If you try to mix Paul's writings with church, it never makes any sense. But one of the things he said is the first man, Adam, became a living soul. The second man, Adam, became a life-giving spirit. And it explains that the second Adam was Jesus. Well, if you go back and look at that in original Greek, it's not exactly the way it's worded. It's like the first time Adam became a living soul. The second time Adam became a life-giving spirit. In the Bible, Jesus is called our Father, our eternal Father, and our rightful King. Well, according to the Ten Commandments, actual natural law, our rightful king would be our father's father. And one of the big issues about Jesus is that he was earning the right to be our king by being a son of man. So Jesus was different from Adam. Adam was the son of God. Jesus was the son of man. But at the same time, Jesus was also a son of God. So you can draw your own conclusions. And remember, in the book of Revelation, he's called our king, but he's also called our eternal Father. Now, I know already what somebody's going to bring up. Somebody somewhere is going to say, well, Abraham is called our eternal Father as well. I don't know how all that works out. I just know that it sounds like this was all part of a really cool plan.
Well, next, Matt Wilcox makes a passing comment about saying that he's experienced miracles, but it's difficult to talk about. Have you ever experienced a miracle, Henry?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happen. I don't want to go into details, but yeah, there's things that have happened to me that cannot be explained. Physically cannot be explained by the physical laws of our universe as we're taught them in school. So, yes, I have. I've experienced some rather bizarre miracles beyond belief stuff. So,
well, maybe Matt can tell us a little bit about what he experienced, and then we can talk about that. But
don't do it in your real name, man. I mean, honestly, I like to.
Well, what's wrong with that? Why would you be afraid to?
Like I say, here's the deal with this is a hip crowd that comes to these, right? There's people that are they understand that the way spirituality is explained to us in the world doesn't make any sense, but the way spirituality is explained here in this little community makes a lot of sense. And so, I've got subscribers all the time telling me stuff that absolutely I'm supposed to, by social law, laugh at them, right, or badmouth them or something. But when somebody tells me something really bizarre that can't possibly have happened, I'm like, wow, that's cool. Because I know that kind of stuff happens. And here you go. Look at all the stuff I've ever said is going to happen in the very near future. I promise you it's going to happen. And when it happens, I'm going to be glad that I said that. That's one of the reasons I don't like putting my neck out there on things I don't have to. Because you start talking crazy about everything, and then nobody believes the thing that's important. The fact that our sun and moon and earth are about to go back into conjunction, which no one else is talking about anywhere on earth, that's important. Because the day that happens, people need to know that came from here first, right? And so you want people to hang in there with you. If you keep throwing out crazy talk, then you lose your audience, and then you're not effective. So the thing that's important, that's what I'm going to stick to. Well, Matt could actually, if he's not concerned with people believing some other story he has that's crazy, yeah, everybody needs to say one crazy thing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I think I'm overdue. I say lots of crazy things.
I just thought you told me those things. I didn't know.
No, I come up with a new one every day. Freebirdification. He just joined. Said hi. Next question comes from Marie's Vegetable Garden. She's asking about Mike's Chilli YouTube channel. Have you ever seen that channel, and what do you think about it if you have?
I don't know. You know, it used to be years ago. Before I started out on this thing, right? I was worried that because everybody, you know, I've been the village idiot for the last for 45 years. I was a village idiot, right? And so I knew I couldn't be friends with normal people, so I was looking for village idiots, and so I spent a lot of time on YouTube, you know, reaching out farther and farther, even looking to other countries to see if there's some wacky guy out there talking about things that I talked about. And what I found is there are a lot of wacky people out there, but they're not talking about the things that I talk about, and a lot of what they're talking about goes against what I'm teaching. And you know, nowadays people send me YouTube videos to watch pretty much on at least on a weekly basis, if not daily basis. And you know, I hate to be judgmental. When somebody puts a lot of work into a video, like an hour-long video, I feel like before you form an opinion about it, you need to watch an hour of the video. But I normally will form an opinion within 30 seconds, simply because I'm limited to that. You know, I can give up writing, give up producing videos, and just watch videos, or I can do what I do and give up videos. So no, I'm not aware of that. No, in fact, as far as I know, no one sent me anything about that. And if you wish, you may send me something like that, and I'll pass judgment on it in about 30 seconds. Actually, I don't pass judgment on everything in 30 seconds. If somebody's making sense, I'll watch the whole video. But usually, it's like this September 23rd stuff that was going around. I tried to force myself to listen to that, but you know, it's like instantly. Most of this stuff, once you get to the first sentence that's about what's going to happen, it's meaningless, and so there's no point in listening to it.
Looks like Uncle Nestor wants you to say praise Jesus. Like maybe he's going to say that.
And I'm starting to become a what do you call those guys? Telepreacher?
Yeah, like a newscaster, talking head or something.
Yeah, no, what is that? The guys that like Oral Roberts or something, they'll always throw that out there.
Yeah.
But that's like, what did last week he asked me to say that? I went, praise Jesus and hallelujah and send money. Almost was like, look, friends, I know that you're in trouble and you're sad and you're lonely. Here at Sustenance and Covering, I have these special prayer towels that for only $9.99 a month, for 12 months, you can have one of these. And if you blow your nose for this, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but you know, these guys, these television preachers, I really, really want to make sure that I am not associated with any of that, you know. And sometimes it takes more than just the hair to set yourself apart, you know.
Next question is kind of involved. It's from BMW guy. He's asking about if you can explain what happens to pets when they die. And he says he has great hope that they will be in heaven to greet us when we pass over. But other than speculation others he has no info on what it is. And then Grandma Patty chimes in saying the animal's breath is the same breath of life man has.
Almost.
So it seems reasonable that they will too live. And then Matt Wilcox says some animals have spirits, some don't. The Bible does not elaborate.
The Bible actually, it does not give any details, but it does elaborate. Preachers don't want to talk about it because it's just easy to get up there and say, you know, that, well, you know, when the thing of sin, like sin, you know, if you have sex, that's a sin, unless you get a license first. Well, what about dogs and cats and cows? Well, they don't have a soul. Well, where do you get that? Where does that come from? Show me the scripture. Because there are none. But there is a part of one of Paul's letters. You know, people talk about Paul's letters are too confusing, or they're not really part of the Bible, especially these Messianic people. They're like suspect of anything Paul writes. But a lot of what Paul writes is like, it's like the most important stuff in the Bible. But he was talking about the difference between men and animals. and angels. That was the big difference. Like, he wanted to explain the difference between men and angels. Well, there's already a difference recorded throughout the Bible in other verses. It says that people who die go to Sheol, and that's all the way from Genesis up to Malachi, and then from Matthew all the way to Revelation, men, human beings, go to Hades. Now, we think Hades is burning hellfire because by tradition that's what we're taught, but Hades means the realm of dead humans. And if you go back into Sheol, the word Sheol, the actual word Sheol, means realm of dead humans. It doesn't mean anything about realm of bad humans or realm of sinful humans or anything. It's just the realm of dead humans. But, and this is it within the Bible or without, those words are just the realm of dead humans inside of the Bible as well as in other pieces of literature from the same era, same language. And the same thing with angels. When angels die, they do not go to Sheol. Angels go to Tartarus. And that's, that's the Greek language. That means the prison of the gods. All ancient literature that's in Greek about Tartarus are about the realm of dead gods. So these angels, the angels that forsook their proper place and came here to the earth, apparently can die, can end up in a situation similar to what humans experience when they die, but it's not in the same place. So there is a difference. There's some kind of difference between angels and humans. Well, when Paul was explaining that difference, he started to explain that all spirits have a different glory, whatever that means. But I think it's about, when humans die, they go to Sheol. When angels die, they go to Tartarus. When insects, fish, birds, land mammals die, they go to, they're in some other realm because their spirit is different than a human spirit. But remember, we're not talking about people's spirit going into heaven and, floating around disembodied. The Bible very clearly talks about a resurrection, and the word resurrection is like what happened to Lazarus. He didn't turn into a ghost and float off. He came back to life on earth. When Jesus was resurrected, he didn't float off into space. He came back to life on earth. And at the final trumpet blast, it says that when this whole system comes to an end and civilization is done away with forever, we will go into the cloud, not up in the clouds, we'll go into the cloud to meet Jesus and the resurrected dead. So I think that all of those animals are in some kind of holding position and they'll somehow be here. And it may also be that, there's a lot of religions are based on things like turning into ghosts or being reincarnated or something like that. So, your dog may have been somebody else's dog 100 years ago, because you think about it, how many bazillions of mice have lived and died? There wouldn't be much room for people. If you go back and you look at how many people have lived and died, this earth will support that, I'm pretty sure. But mice, maybe mice are being reincarnated. See, that's all speculation. Now, this here, if somebody wants to take this out of context, this is all going to be saved on my hard drive, so I can go back and play the whole thing as soon as somebody tells me that I'm preaching that mouse get reincarnated, because I don't know. But I do know that every living thing has a life force that apparently does not go away, because Paul would have addressed that. I mean, Paul even said that the planets have a life force, because in that same verse when he says that the glory of angels is different than the glory of a man, the glory of a man is different than the glory of animals and fish and birds, and the glory of angels is different than the glory of stars. And he said even the stars differ in glory one from the other. The way the churches talk about that, that's like the brightness of the stars is different. That's not true. It's, we have the word star that's used there is Astarte. Well, that means celestial object, so it could be a comet or a planet or a star. And, maybe, all the gods, Saturn, Mars, those are the names of planets. They're the name of beings that were here on the earth, supposedly. Maybe they came from there, or maybe the soul of that planet is the soul of the being that walked the earth. I don't know.
Couple people saying hi from Manchester, UK. It's 69 Bucket, and then Sam Forster. And actually, Sam Forster has a follow up to I think what you just answered here, which is where do we go when we die? Which I think you kind of answered that, but he also adds in that he's just really scared that he's going to die.
Well, you know what's really cool about that? You know, it's like It's 1:30 in the morning over there. That's really impressive that somebody would stay up till, because you know this is going to be recorded, right? You could wake up tomorrow and watch this. It just wouldn't be live. But yeah, I really, I know, I wish that I could just tell you. I don't want to be anybody's God. I just want to be like your friend and a person that's a human being just like everybody else. But I know things that I don't, you know, when a preacher tells you they know something, they're lying. They don't know anything. You know, but I know for a fact that there are things that are happening in this world that no one believes in, and there is going to be a resurrection. And it doesn't say that there's going to be a resurrection of everybody that don't cuss, and everybody that eats a kosher diet, and everybody that gets a license before they have sex, or, you know, there's a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. And so if you think those things are unrighteous, which they're not, then you're still going to get a resurrection. You know, it doesn't matter if you're Hitler or whatever, you're going to get a resurrection. But there is a difference of resurrections too. The Bible says very clearly there's a resurrection to life and a resurrection to judgment. But even the resurrection to judgment is basically where you get 1,000 years to live in paradise and decide if you want to start cutting down trees and building shopping malls. At least that's the way I see it, you know. And, oh well.
Yeah, Danny Dunnigan says hi from Tennessee, and Grandma Patty had a quick joke about what you were talking about, the televangelist. She says it's a tell-live-evangelist.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know how people can get into that stuff, but, you know, people do a lot of irrational stuff. You know, I mean, I try my best not to be judgmental of people, but people just get in this super irrational where it does not matter how you reason with them. They can't see it. You know, it just blows my mind when somebody says something that is just so stupid, and you give them a really, really good, reasonable explanation for what they're talking about, and they shut down. I think I may have already brought this up. I don't think with my regular sustenance and covering YouTube channel, but maybe in the podcast. I don't know. Did I say anything to you about Donald Trump the other day?
I think the last time we mentioned him was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Okay,
let me tell you, I had to go to the VA. I got a call, and I'd been trying to get in forever, and that's obviously wasn't happening. And so I went down there in person again, and I said, look, I'm supposed to be coming to the eye. I went straight to the eye doctor. They're the people that are supposed to check me to make sure that none of my veins have ruptured in my head. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Get a little water. And after they put drops in your eyes and your eyes get dilated, they put you in a dark room with a bunch of soldiers that are going through the same thing. And so there's these 2 old guys sitting across from me. And I'm friendly with everybody, and I don't know why. Maybe I just need to shut up and go in a corner and stay away from people, because I always get really disappointed. So these old soldiers, obviously the first thing they do is they start talking about marijuana. So I got to be like, look, man, I got the hair, and I know what you're doing. It's not like you're going to, you know, talk me out of weed because I don't smoke. I can't smoke, you know. I'm not able to do that. So you don't have to talk about weed. But then they started talking about world politics. If you're ever around a bunch of guys that are wearing them silly little, they'll have a shirt on with, you know, I was in Nam, or, you know, USS shoot guns or whatever. They always have this G.I. Joe paraphernalia. And I'm sitting there, and the guys started talking about Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il. I think that's his name. Is that right? Isn't that the president or the
pretty
king?
Close? It's like one is the father and one's the son, and they're just slightly different. You know what it is.
Yeah, one's alive and one's dead. That's a big difference. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, the name is just slightly different. Yeah.
But anyways, they're talking about this guy, and they're like, that's one of the bad things about the military. There's always somebody holding you back. Somebody should have gone to North Korea and took him out years ago, even if based on nothing but his haircut. So then they go into this 5-minute thing where they're talking about how goofy this guy's haircut is, and how if he's the king of the country, why doesn't he get a better barber? And so here I am. I'm trying to I don't want to get involved in that. It's politics. It's silly. It's fake. I don't care about it. But I don't want to seem like I'm ignoring them. So I said, can you imagine how relieved Kim Jong Il was when Donald Trump got elected? Because after years and years of having the goofiest haircut on the planet, finally a world leader gets up there with a goofier haircut. And so these guys should be like, hey, this old hippie's got a point. But instead, they both got real quiet and started looking at the wall. Like,
I think you also had mentioned that you told me this story, and it was also a point that he puts a lot of effort into that haircut. Actually, both do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a paranoid thing, Well, Kim Jong Il may be mad, It's like, man, now what am I going to do? How can I top Donald Trump?
Yeah. KNFX 787 says hello from Pennsylvania, and Marie's Vegetable Garden about that Mike Healy YouTube channel. She says just look at the last 2 videos, but I'm sure you're going to forget about it. So Marie, you might want to email them to remind them.
Yes, there you go. I was going to go ahead and try to open up a text document and type that in. And I'll just send me a little thing saying. See, I don't even.
He's not going to remember.
Ron Ely. All I know about him is he played Tarzan in the 1970s.
Okay, let's see. Now, Matt Wilcox, he gives an anecdote here. He says, for example, I think this is in reference to dying and certain things. For example, if you must know, a 9mm handgun, he puts it up to his head, discharged, the bullet passes through without a mark, and that's because it was not his time yet. And he's convinced that God has a purpose or destiny for him, perhaps. So maybe there's no death or whatever. And then I think this is all going to the point about, what happens when we die or when we die. And then Karina Shirelli says, in reference again to this dying, that she's asking, so are you saying there's no punishment for evil, such as Hitler and the many other evil people in the world?
Okay, once again, I don't want to go on I don't want to expose myself to a bunch of craziness, but let's just look at how this is described in the Bible. And I guess I've already talked about how the Bible is about the restoration of our solar system, right? Well, hopefully everybody out there, okay, if this is, let me just say this right now, if this is the first sustenance and covering video you've ever seen, don't turn it off. Go back and watch the Written in Stone series. Go back and watch the what are some of the other ones? Angels and Men series, or watch some of the videos I started producing recently called the Bible Code. Everything in the Bible is a good story. I mean, there really was a man named Jesus. He really did the things he said he was going to. But everything he did had a purpose in regard to recording solid evidence for the future of what has happened in our solar system in the past and will happen to our solar system in the future. So we started off with a solar system that worked perfectly. The sun always was in the daytime sky, the moon was in the nighttime sky, right? It says that God made 2 great luminaries, one to rule over the day, one to rule over the night. And it uses that word rulership like it uses for King Solomon and other kings. It was the sun would tell you when to wake up, and you would obey that rulership. The moon would tell you when to go to sleep. You would be obedient to that rulership. But that there were also the Calcabim, with no authority given to them whatsoever. In other words, when you're sleeping, it doesn't matter where Saturn or Mars are. Has nothing to do with making decisions about your life. But as time went on, mankind created religion. And it was based on the worship of the gods. And the gods were always associated with the planets. So that's where we get astrology, Roman Catholic Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, Judaism, all of that is based on not just the sun and the moon, but now we're worried about the Kawkabim, which is the celestial object. So 7 planets and 12 constellations, like a big clock. And so as these planets are moving through the constellations, events would take place on the earth in regard to the rulership of those demons. And it's like Jesus described it as a threshing floor. In other words, threshing is when you take a pile of wheat and you put it in on a hard surface, a big stone that's flat. And I'm talking about like a surface that's like the size of an acre. And you have this huge, this massive roller that's pulled by a bull. And the bull goes round and round and round and round and round. It just keeps going around every day. And the grain gets tore up and the seeds fall out. So you take the threshings and you throw them into the fire. But at the same time, there are laws in the Bible that said you couldn't stop a bull from eating. And the bull, grazing animals, they'll eat grain, but they'll eat the chaff, or the stuff that, the sticks and stuff. Well, if you look at our constellations, the way they're laid out, it's 12s. There's so many stories in the Bible about 12. The 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 stones in Aaron's vest, the 12 foundation stones, the 12 was the judges. There's just 12s come up over and over again. And the same thing with 7. 7s are always like the 7 eunuchs, the 7 wise men, the 7 advisors, the 7 kings, and 7 mountains, 7 stones, 7 rocks. So, and 7 kings. There's always, or 7 heads, the book of Revelation. If you go back and read all those stories, you'll see a pattern of 12s and 7s that are associated with the movement of the 7 planets within the ecliptic, which is made up of 12 constellations. And if you look at the constellations in order, they form the letters of the alphabet. Not our English letters, but ancient Phoenician. It also seems that they form the Chinese alphabet, and they form the the Hebrew alphabet. So the very first one is Aleph and Beth, A and B. The A and the B are shaped like a bull. So that's where we get Taurus. The constellation Taurus is made up of the ancient Phoenician letters Alpha and Beta, or Alpha and Beth. And in fact, in the book of Revelation, it talks about God says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. So if we look at the Alpha and the Omega, that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, all the way around. The very first one is Aleph, the bull. And the very last one is Aries, the ram. Right? That's, if you look at the astrological sign for the goat, for Aries, it's, it looks like female reproductive organs. But if you look at the star pattern in the sky for Aries, it actually looks like the very last letter of the alphabet, and it looks like the Omega, the Greek Omega. That's like a, it's shaped like an upside down U with 2 legs on it, or 2 protrusions coming out. Well, you can look up what Omega looks like. But anyway, if you look at how our ecliptic is right now, I don't know, I think they say we're in the age of Aquarius because there is a movement that happens over thousands and upon thousands of years. NASA said it's like 25,000 years. The reality is it's only been going on for 6,000 years. So apparently over the course of time, our solar system has been adjusted at several occasions, like the flood, Sodom and Gomorrah, the Babylonian. You can go back and look at the stories of these events as they took place on earth, and you just figure that's what was happening in the heavens as well. Well, the very first animal in there is Aleph, the bull, right? The last one is the goat. These are the 2 sacrificial animals. There's a great sacrifice when our solar system was created. There's going to be another great sacrifice called Armageddon, where we sacrifice the goat, the ram. I know this is crazy stuff, but I mean it's real. It's in the Bible. I mean, it's if you read a verse, I can't give you a verse to explain this, but if you read a verse, then you'll get nowhere. But if you read the Bible over and over again, you'll start seeing this pattern of 7s and 12s. Okay, here's the point I'm making. I've said in other videos that all of the 7s, you end up with an 8. Okay, remember when Jesus was on earth, he was always with a woman named Mary Magdalene. A lot of stories outside of the Bible say that Mary Magdalene was Jesus' wife, or that they had children together. And I don't know that that happened. In fact, I doubt it. You know, I mean, it might have happened because Jesus, it says, experienced everything that humans experience. That way he could be a righteous judge of us. And so how could you say he experienced everything if he didn't experience women? But anyway, it says that Mary Magdalene was the woman that God removed the 7 demons from. Well, demons are those wicked gods, right? So Jesus removed 7 wicked gods from Mary Magdalene. Well, who would be the 8th god? It would be Jesus. Jesus removed those 7. He became the 8th god of Mary Magdalene. If you go back or if you look at the book of Revelation, it talks about the 7-headed beast and another beast coming who has 2 horns, right? And remember, in the book of Revelation, all of that's about celestial phenomenon, because in ancient Israel, every time a lunar eclipse took place, they had to blow a horn, and then every time that a solar eclipse came, one of the planets would receive a crown, because that's what corona means. Corona is crown. A corona is this ring of light that shows up around the moon when the sun's on the other side of it. And so there's a 7 again, 7-headed beast replaced by another beast, you know, another head. And then there's, but it has 2 horns. So there's apparently 2 lunar eclipses associated with this 8th. And it actually physically says that this beast acts as an 8th king, right? And you can go back and look at other stories about 7s, and they end up with an 8. So that's where we get the 8th planet. So these 7 planets are out there, but the Bible always talks about an 8th whenever there's a group of 7 of anything. And so this 8th head is probably a planet that is already there, but it's exactly on the other side of the sun, exact same pattern that Earth is following. So we're going around the sun, never aware of this, and there's no way NASA could find that. And if they could, you know, if they could send a ship around the other side, there's no way they could even send a signal back through the sun to tell us what's there. But in the book of Revelation, it talks about 4 horsemen, and the 4 horsemen are according to colors. It's like a white one and a black one and a red one. But it also talks about a pale horse. That's not true. If you look that word up, it's like the Greek word is chloros. I think it's chloros, which is where we get the green stuff out of plants. That word chloros means green. And so there's a green planet somewhere. Because each of those is a planet. The horsemen that ride out are planets returning to their proper orbits. And see, even the Earth would have been green before the flood. See, right now we're blue, supposedly, because the waters of the flood came to the Earth. So we're still flooded. We're waiting for those waters to go back up and create this globe. Now here's the point I'm trying to get at. And I hope you're still listening and haven't turned this off yet, because we are going somewhere with this. As that bull is going around, it's threshing. I'm talking about Taurus, the bull. And it doesn't just go around once in 6,000 years. It goes around our solar system once in 6,000 years, but it actually goes around our Earth every year, because that's how you have the seasons. Now, like I said, I think we're in the age of Aquarius, but that's because secular history records the constellation that's behind the sun as the constellation for the age, when in fact, according to the Bible, the constellation would be whatever is behind the lunar eclipses during the equinox. You know, spring and fall equinox would be, that's what you're paying attention to, which would right now be, I think we're coming up on the Omega. You know, the Omega is Aries, the ram. So the whole cycle is almost complete. And as this threshing's going on, remember when the Ark of the Covenant was brought into the Promised Land, it was a weird series of events that took place where the Ark ended up stuck on somebody else's property, and so King David purchased the property from the man it belonged to, and so that he could leave the Ark there. Well, that's where it's Mount Moriah. That's where they eventually built the temple. The Temple Mount today is on a stone. It's a big flat stone, because that was the threshing floor for the tribe of Judah at that time. Everybody brought their wheat there to thresh. So that right where the Ark of the Covenant is sitting, or was sitting, was the center of the threshing floor. And remember what took place there was the sacrifices of goats, or sacrifices of rams and bulls. Those two constellations that began our 6,000-year cycle and end our 6,000-year cycle. And remember, the threshing is being done by a bull, when it is actually bulls that are being sacrificed on the threshing floor. See, that's a big thing. So Jesus compared that threshing floor when he was asked, said, what's the last days going to be like? And he said, well, there's going to be a separating of sheep and goats. And I did a video about that called the sheep and the goats, where Jesus was saying, he didn't say there was going to be a separating of sheep and goats. He said there's going to be a separating of the male stud goats from his flock. His flock being sheep and goats, but sheep and goats that were obedient to him. So that's two different species of animals that can reproduce, just like angels and humans. Angels and humans are two different species, but they obviously can reproduce, because the Bible says when they do reproduce, it creates Nephilim. Now, when Jesus was talking about the resurrection, he said, I have another flock that must also be called. So he's got two flocks. Why would you have two flocks? He's not talking about a flock of sheep and a flock of goats. He's talking about two completely different flocks. So as this threshing's going on, the grains are being beaten out of the chaff, and the grains are being distributed. There's a lot of scriptures in the Bible about distributing grain. You know, I mean, when Joseph was the second in command over Egypt, that was the big deal. The dividing up of grain. You know, in the Bible, when the widows and orphans, it's like, what are we going to do? Well, we have to give them, you know, divide up grain. And so I suspect that all of these, what Jude calls, if you're familiar with Jude, the book of Jude says, what's going to happen with the wicked demons? Says, well, God did not hold back from punishing the wicked angels that came here to have sexual relations with humans, but he put them into pits of dense darkness. Well, those are the goats that have to be separated from humans. Now, if you read all of the verses, a lot of them are associated with sending them into the fire that never goes out. The fire that never goes out is the sun. And in the past, I thought, well, maybe the angels that are wicked, they're just going to be sent to the sun, and that's where they'll spend all eternity, on the sun. But I really believe when you get to that 2 Thessalonians where it talks about the people who live to the end may never have to die at all, but will go into the cloud to be with Jesus and the resurrected dead. There's a lot of stuff in the ancient past talking about some kind of a vortex. You know, Jacob's ladder. If you've ever heard of Jacob's ladder, if you look that up in Hebrew, it's not Jacob's ladder. It's like Jacob's funnel, or Jacob's conical ramp. Jacob saw angels going up, and he saw angels coming down. Outside of the Bible, there are other stories about beings going into heaven and to another planet, and beings from the other planets coming to earth. So when all of the demons are sent back to where they go, you know, the god Saturn and all of his followers, the god Mars and all his followers, I'm talking about angels, beings that belong there don't belong here, like Jude says, the angels that forsook their proper dwelling place to come to the earth. You got to imagine that if they forsook their proper dwelling place is not the earth. Well, at the same time, there is nothing in the Bible about a twin planet to Jupiter, or a twin planet to Mercury, or a twin planet to Venus, or Neptune, or Uranus. There's only a twin planet to Earth, the green planet, the green horse. When that planet comes around, I suspect that all of us will be on this paradise Earth, because the Bible, you know, I've thought in the past, well, maybe we go to that other planet, because all these people talking about rapture, maybe that's what happens. We get raptured to the other planet. But the reality is, all the verses about the righteous are about the righteous being resurrected to the earth. I think part of that separating, once all the demons are separated from humans, the humans who worship the demons will be separated from the humans that worship the true God. So, I know I'm going on, but anyway.
Yeah, you sure are.
Hopefully, I mean, this is a video. This could be a whole video right here. I could just go
be, yeah.
go edit all the questions out and act like this is what I meant to talk about. But You know, if all of those spirit creatures are put back into their fleshly realms, wherever that is, then, you know, it may be uncomfortable for us. Like I say about Hitler, you know, I don't want to hang out with him. But at the same time, what would Hitler be like once the demons are removed from him? You know, I know people in my regular life that I love very, very much. I'm not joking. I mean, there are people that I can't imagine being without that are, to me, very obviously demon-possessed, because the stuff they do is so evil and so irrational, you know, that I can't imagine any other explanation for the stuff they're involved in. You know, people that they'll go stand in line all day to vote. You know, who in the heck would go do that? But people I love do that. Well, once the demons who rule over the politicians are gone, you put these people in a paradise and say, okay, we don't have any tools, but if we start breaking stuff, we can take these rocks and use them to cut trees down. And, you know, maybe they'll say, well, wait a second now, this sounds like a really familiar story that I don't want to get involved in. You know, so there you go. Conspiracy theorists, crazy stuff. And like I say, if this sounds goofy, go back and watch some of my other videos where I've got the actual scriptural references. This is the only thing that makes sense.
Well, if we can get a word in edgewise, Joe Mama wants us to comment that the goat isn't sacrificed; it is thrown into the wilderness. And then Mick Seth says there is a scapegoat, and then there's a sacrificial goat.
I did a video a while back called Dualism, or the Two Brothers, and in that there's always one that has to. It's like good cop, bad cop. You've always got these two brothers. One is separated from the other, and they fight over rulership. I mean, it was like Jacob and his brother Esau, Isaac and Ishmael. You know, even if you look at all, Noah and his brother, it was Noah that got to go in, the older brother didn't. Shem and his brother Ham, you know, Shem was a younger brother, he got to go in, Ham did. That's over and over and over again. Well, those brothers are always associated with the goats, the two goats, or two rams. Don't even know if they're goats. You know, that's kind of a tradition that it's a scapegoat and a regular goat. It's really, the word for ram, for whatever reason, a sheep ram or a goat ram is the same word. So you have a scapegoat, and what happens, you take the two goats and you just arbitrarily say, you know, the priest lays his hands on him and it says, you're the scapegoat. And you know, that ends up in the book of Enoch. I don't know if you know that. It's kind of a really weird thing. Azazel. Azazel means male stud goat. And so Azazel, it says Azazel is sent to take the sins of the people, and the other one is executed. So one gets killed, one lives. But those are like the two roles that Jesus played. Jesus is the scapegoat, or Satan's the scapegoat, and Jesus is the goat that gets executed. And I really believe that when this world is divided up, just like we'll meet Jesus in the cloud, and this is not scriptural. Nowhere in the Bible does it say we will meet Satan in the cloud. But I have a feeling that all of us are going to meet in the cloud, and when the dust clears, that Jesus and us will be here. Satan and his worshippers will be there. But remember the story of the prodigal son. You know, it's only at the end of the story where the bad son comes back. So you've got these two sons. One of them always does what he's supposed to do. He ends up living happily ever after. One of them goes out and completely destroys his inheritance, comes back, lives happily ever after. You know, this is not the God of punishment and reward. Is not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is the God of balance. He doesn't try to punish anybody. He simply tries to make everybody happy. He's got a 6,000-year history of it. You know, he's trying to make us happy. You know, he says here's natural law: eat food and sleep and rest for the rest of your life. And we said, well, those 10 are pretty good, but can we have an option? I said, okay. You know, here's 600 arbitrary laws about what to eat and what to wear. Okay, that's cool. That's what we want. But see, human beings that took that option didn't do what they, after they got permission to live by that, they wouldn't do it, you know. What was the question again?
Yeah, really. Well, you know, there's positive words from Chicago, Do It Yourself Now. He says, don't stop. Love it when something sparks some memory or an idea, and then you share it. But Grandma Panty chimes in about your doctor's visit with the military men. She wanted to comment. She said, what country has North Korea ever attacked? And then how many countries has the U.S. attacked?
Well, I think that, I mean, I'm sure that North Korea is some really, really bad people, but they have no real transportation system, because if they had cars and stuff and gasoline, I'm sure they would have came over here and started something by now. They got nuclear bombs, right? People don't realize what a nuclear bomb is, and what a nuclear bomb is like an impossible thing for any country to build unless they're all countries. How in America even did it, I don't know. It's an amazing thing. But the delivery system is worse than the bomb. You know, the first bomb we dropped was out of an airplane. We had to fly over and drop it. But, you know, like during the Cold War, when the Russians had 1 million missiles pointed at America, well, when the wall fell, it was revealed that none of their missiles worked. They really didn't know how they would just point them and shoot and hope they hit America. You know, the guidance system. Yeah, I'm getting into politics. Hey, you know what? Here's the deal. Iran and North Korea are the only two nations left in the Northern Hemisphere that have not been supposedly forced into the British banking system, I think. You know, it's all propaganda. We don't really know what's going on over there, but I can promise you this, that before the end comes, the empire will invade and subject those people to the same miserable conditions we live. In fact, they'll be in worse conditions, you know, until they can get used to being abused like this.
The Lock King asks, "What's up with the pyramids?"
Oh my goodness! For the question for that, or the answer to that, I would say go back and watch my All-Seeing Eye videos. I did an entire series called All-Seeing Eye, which talks about the pyramids and the importance of the pyramids to each of Satan's empires. If you go back in time, it's like the Egyptians had pyramids, and they had predatory birds, and they had red, white, and blue flags, and then the Assyrians took over, and they had pyramids and predatory birds and red, white, and blue flags, and that's all the way through history. You know, I mean, here's the thing. The Trinity is three sides. That's what a pyramid is. You got the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in our empire back in the ancient past. The same three characters are called Osiris, Horus, and Isis. And they're always associated with colors red, white, and blue. Now, you know, here's one of the things I was talking to Usamos about today, is that all of these things have to do with celestial phenomenon. If you go back in the ancient past, somehow people understood that the things about the planets that we don't understand today. And so they had, for whatever reasons, at some point in history, you could look up in the sky and see 3 planets at one time. And those 3 planets were very likely red, white, and blue. And there's a lot of candidates out there for that. I guess Uranus is blue, and Mars is red, the moon is white. Even you could look at like Neptune is Neptune blue. Neptune is light blue. It could be white. And so probably some empire was founded during some celestial event where you were having a 3-way conjunction between 3 different planets, and that ends up in historically it's everywhere. I don't know why, it's just everywhere. I don't know how people through the years have determined that they need to keep that, because those things are not happening now. You can go out there, you can't see any you can see the moon, it's white, but we don't see anything red or blue. You know, even Buddhism, I don't know if I already said something about this before, but it's like, if you look at Buddhism, I don't think that was a man that lived 1,000 years ago. I think this is the original story of Osiris, Horus, and Isis. You know, if you look at, you know, how the Buddha came about, he was like a virgin birth, and his father was the king, which would be Satan, and he was like the Nephilim. And in trying to keep his son from going off into religion, he tried to keep him as the ruler. Right, so the blue is the color of rulership, or purple. Blue or purple is always color of rulership. Always warfare is blood. That's red. That's the planet Mars. And white is like the Holy Ghost. So you've got religion, economics, and politics. Those are the 3 sides of the pyramid, or the 3 points of the pyramid. And so the Buddha's father wanted him to stay, so he built a palace for him, and he's surrounded the palace with 3 ponds, right? You know, fish ponds, but he planted the fish ponds with Oh, what are those things? Well, the lotus flowers. Lotuses look like lily pads, but they got these things that come out look like a shower head. But he planted one pond in red lotuses, one in white lotuses, and one in blue lotuses. You know, I was watching a video a while back. It was like King David or King Solomon. Yeah, I think it was King Solomon, and these soldiers are all riding out, and they all are carrying shields, and the shields have like a planet and a star, and they're red, white, and blue. I mean, it's just, this stuff is like, it is absolutely, it saturates our media. You know, when the Bible says that all Scripture is inspired of God, the word Scripture means all writings. It doesn't mean all Bible writings. And I've gone back and looked, and the word Scripture in the Bible is always associated with writings of the Bible. But it could be all writings of everything. I watched a thing the other day, Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's about some guy that's really does all kinds of stuff that's impossible, like he's a god. But he finds his father, who he's never found before, and he finds out that his father is God, right? He's the God of the galaxy, and he's trying to take over, and he needed a son, so he impregnated. He found a human female on Earth. He impregnated her, and this guardian of the galaxy was born. And it's like it's the same story. It's a story of the Bible. You get the virgin birth, and you got the wicked God and the Nephilim. But anyways, he's telling him this, and he brings him to his planet, and he says, "Wow, you have your own planet?" And he goes, "I am the planet," which is the same story that all of these, you know, Saturn, the God Mars, God Saturn, God, you know, Neptune. They're all gods, and they're all planets. And so the guy that's with him says, "Well, how did you get that woman pregnant if you're a planet? Planets don't have penises." And well, the whole thing is, if you go back and look at the story of Osiris, Horus, and Isis, that was a big issue. Osiris got all cut up and thrown into the Nile, and so Isis had to somehow retrieve him and put all his body parts back, but she never found his penis, so she had to have some priest create for her what's called an ankh, and that's the cross, the crucifix, but the ankh is a crucifix with a loop on top. And that was the thing that she used. It's called the key of life. Somehow, even without a penis, she was able to get pregnant with this key of life in order to give birth to the Nephilim, Horus. And so that's the same story as Guardians of the Galaxy, you know.
Well, it looks like the Lock King was more wondering about the pyramids being built by the Nephilim and like the relationship of the pyramids to the flood and what that was all about.
I think the pyramids were built before. This is my opinion, and it's not in the Bible. I believe that the pyramids were built before the flood because there's too many stories that are associated with it from the Bible that are associated with a pyramid. You know, like there's a verse, I don't know where, it's one of the prophets that says that the mountain of God, a stone was torn out of the mountain of God and thrown down. That's a direct reference to the pyramids, because that word that they translate as mountain is actually pyramid. And every Bible on earth, every translator of the Bible that's ever lived that translates that passage into English knows that that's a pyramid, because it's not the word mountain, and the word itself is a descriptive word of stacking cut stones. You know, you don't make mountains by stacking cut stones. So I believe that the pyramids existed before the flood, and I do believe that when the flood came and Noah entered the ark, God removed the capstone from the pyramid and tossed it down, and it's never been seen again. Even, you know, every single historian that has ever written anything about the floods, even from like 3,000 years ago, said that of all the pyramids they had ever seen, this is the only one that did not have a capstone. And so, you know,
a few words of praise. Rebecca Hammond says, "I like the way you think, Henry." Grandma Patty says, "Whenever any human gives me words of wisdom, I recognize it as inspired." And Sleepy Girl 85 says she appreciates the fact that you reiterate to everyone to read the Bible for themselves and to reference the original language it's written in, because a lot of it is twisted by translation. Looks like we're pretty much out of time. Looks like Sam Forster was persistent in asking something about a fidget spinner.
Yeah, hey, bring me my fidget spinner. No, I was gonna. Okay. Hey, look, when I saw first time he made a comment, I was impressed by it. I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna go look. I go look, and it's like This is a kid's channel. Why is a kid talking like a wise old man, you know? So I started watching his videos, and one of his videos was about a fidget spinner. It's just like a little fad that's run its course, you know. I don't even but anyways, every time I would go to the store, I'd be thinking about those things. And I told him, I said, you know, every time I go to the store, I think about that video you did about fidget spinner. And he says, you need to get one. They're cool. So I got one. Hey, bring me my fidget spinner.
Oh, you actually bought one?
Yeah, I was like $5, man. Oh, you? Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'll just sit there and spin that thing, and
he said it long. It doesn't keep my attention for more than a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's the same with me, man. I start within an hour or two. I'm done. I don't even want to mess with it anymore until the next day.
Yeah. You should do the mouth harp, or whatever you call it.
Oh yeah, mouth harp.
Kind of like your fidget spinner.
Yeah, my fidget spinner, my mouth harp. But he asked me, hey man, you need to make a video about the. Oh yeah, here we go. Just in case you don't believe me, Mr. Sam, that's my fidget spinner. Sometime I'll set it down on the ground and the cat will come play with it.
Okay, well,
I actually probably shouldn't have said anything about that, because there's people out there that have donated $5 to my PayPal account. And right now, what's going through their head is, man, I didn't mean for you to buy that piece of junk with my $5.
Seriously, yeah. Well, sorry for the people that we didn't get to the questions to, but that's it for tonight. We're a little bit past, so you want to take us out?
Well, remember this, that everything that you have typed during this live stream will disappear the instant that I turn this off. And so if there's something that you want me to respond to, the only way I'll ever get it is if you go back to the video, and all you got to do is click on the video, and you got to watch it all over again. Just put it in the comments, and I will get back to you if I can find it. YouTube is changing things around in a strange way that is making it difficult for me to find comments. Like I can go into my YouTube messages center, and it tells me all the newest comments that are made. But like if you go back and you make a comment on an old comment, it could be 30 or 40 pages away, and I don't get an email, and I end up not being able to respond. So just when this live thing is over and it repost as a regular video, leave a comment. I'll get back with you if I can.
Oh, you don't want to survive?
No, wait, I got to do the whole thing, right? Yeah. As always, we hope you enjoyed the live stream, and if you do not wish to survive, don't listen to me.